Welcome everyone to Unscripted Coding. Today we are going straight back to web development basics. We're going to be using Bootstrap, which is of course a very popular framework to build basic websites. Get rid of a lot of those design bits and pieces, get you started right away. I'm also going to be using jQuery UI, which gives you a few interactive components. You see here I have my eye on sortables specifically. So moving these items up and down, that will be very useful in our project. Now, what we're going to do is something that I actually need for one of my side projects. You see, so far I've been collecting from my friends their settings, I suppose, their preferences, all through a JSON file. They'll give me their names, some publishing dates, some options that are true and false. They're all going to be in this JSON variable, I suppose, this file. And yes, that works for tech savvy people, but if I wanted to get to a broader audience, it's not going to work very well. And so what I want to do is build a very basic form, something that looks like this. You fill things in, and then we're going to use JavaScript to generate the JSON file from these responses. So I'll send them a link to a very basic web page. They'll send me back a file, and if we want to get really fancy, or if I want to build that out, I'll be able to send those options directly to my software or directly to my email, blah, 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 blah. But really, for now, I just want to build out the form, let them create their own JSON file so that they can send it to me. They can copy and paste it instead of writing it from scratch, figuring out which brackets match which, because let's face it, not everyone has Visual Studio Code installed on their computer. The reason I needed jQuery UI as well is because one of the elements that I need within the JSON file is a number of documents that they will order, basically. They currently give me a list of documents with its title and description, and I suppose where it lies on that list, and I need that for my application. This, I suppose, you could do in a form as well, but you can imagine lots of users going, you know what, I actually want to move form 3 up, document 3 up to the top of the list or at the end of the list and moving it up and down. I've seen a lot of even very big companies go with this click button to move up thing, but sortables has always just made a lot of sense to me. You just move them up and down, and you drag and drop, which seems to be less and less popular as people stop using things like jQuery. What was also interesting while I was prepping for this, the 5 minutes before I started this video, is that there aren't really great alternatives. I found this HTML5 sortable. It's no longer actively being maintained. And a few other options are the same thing. So gonna go back to jQuery UI because it is tried and true. It's not the most efficient, it's not the most pretty, it's definitely not the smallest implementation, but you know that it works. You know that people have built pretty significant websites around it. So let's get started. First of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with my JS Fiddle demo. I always use it because I've already imported all the right things, everything I need, whether it's Bootstrap, jQuery, Vue. I didn't import jQuery UI, so we're going to need to put that in. But basically, it gives me a frame to start working with right away. And you'll see this right here when I click Save. We're going to turn this into something workable, a canvas to work with. So let's get started.
Let's go, let's move side to side, let's go. Let's go, let's move side to side, let's go. Let's go, side to side, let's go. Let's go, let's move, side to side, let's go. Let's go, let's move, side to side, let's go. Let's go, let's move, side to side, let's go. Come on, everybody, bring it in. Side to side, let's go. Let's go, let's move, side to side, let's go. Let's go, let's move, side to side, let's go. Let's go, let's move, side to side, let's go.
And we are about 1 hour into this project, and you can see we have a pretty decent looking form. Bootstrap handles a lot of the styling, so you can't go horribly wrong with the design just yet. And we just did a sample of different input types. This isn't going to be the final form that I'm going to use, but you can see there's text, there's a select drop-down, and there is a checkbox as well. And once we put some of this data in, we can click Generate JSON, and we'll come back to documents. But I'm going to paste this into a viewer online. This is what's beautiful about JSON. You paste online, there's all sorts of visualization tools to make it look easy to look through. In this case, we have our two text inputs. I have the form name and my own name. Index is our checkbox, and I can see that's true, so it's checked off. And down here on the type, we have 2. So I can, of course, change these if I want. Now, the next set is our documents. My users are going to have dozens and dozens of documents, and so I'm giving them the opportunity to add documents. For now, let's just say contract, and it'll be dated, let's say a few weeks ago, August 20th, 2022. And I need another one, so we'll go letter dated February of the same year, 2022. And I can keep going. And if I generate the JSON, you'll see, once I paste this in here, that we have our 2 documents, which the second one is empty, which is not a great demonstration, but it should be updating as I type text. But let's move this just to make sure. And you can see that rearranging it has moved the contract to the second spot. So contract has moved down, letter has moved up. Very simple, and this could be used in all sorts of ways. How did we do it? Well, let's walk through the code. First of all, I have very generic headers. We can ignore this, but I imported jQuery, Bootstrap, and jQuery UI. I have a very generic header and footer, and all of this in the middle is a basic form. I went through the trouble of putting labels and descriptions for some of these fields, but basically they are text inputs. This is a select input and a checkbox. The buttons are at the bottom, regular buttons, and for that document section, this is where you have to use jQuery UI. I've called it a sortable. You can call it whatever you want, but it's basically a list, and it allows you to sort each list item, moving them up and down along the list. Now for me, I've noticed that the styling for jQuery UI is terrible, so I had to put styles to override it. Number one, to get rid of the borders around each box, and finally also the bullet points beside each of those items. You may or may not want that. I didn't think it looks very good. It didn't match my design style, so I've taken it out. Now inside each of these list items, you can put anything you want. You might think it's just text, but I put a whole Bootstrap card in there with a form inside each one. So if you remember how it looks like, you have these cards that you can move up and down, and you have a form, a text, and a text area inside. The magic, of course, is all in the script, okay? So, let's go through the simple bit first. We have created an output dictionary that we're going to stringify at the very end. So, you have a dictionary that forms a basis of your JSON file, and then at the very end, you stringify it to turn it into one long string. I have, at the start, put in some empty sections, and when you click the generate button, you're going to go into each of those sections. So in this case, the site name, the author, the type, and you're going to put it in the right place in the dictionary. Very simple, nothing special. For our checkbox, we check if it's checked, and then we set it to true or false accordingly. Nothing here is magical, and finally, we just alert the user what the text is. The more difficult part is going to be this sortable, okay? So what you have to do is you're going to create this sortable right here. You're going to find the ID, create a sortable. That's not too hard. And for me, I'm going to make sure every time the sortable is being updated, whether items have been moved up and down or stopped or whatever else it may be, we're going to call this update document function. I have also made sure that we have done different callbacks as well. So in this case, and I think I'm overthinking it, but every time there is an update to the input. So over here, if I type some text, it's going to trigger an input change. And what we're going to do is again call that update documents function. Here, finally, I don't think this is doing anything, but an earlier option was every time the sortable updates, every time we have an input here, I'm going to trigger a sort update function that's going to update documents, which is circular now that we've found a better way to do it. Finally, the very last thing is if we add a new document. So over here, if I click this add document, what I'm going to do is create a new element that matches this list and card, and we're going to update documents again. So what is this magical update documents function? Well, we're going to go back to that dictionary, that output dictionary, and we're going to put in a placeholder. So it's going to be a list of documents. Each of those lists are going to be its own dictionary with a title and description. What's going to happen is we are going to find the parent element, and in this case we always send it to that sortable, and we're going to go through each of its list children. So we're going to go through this sortable right here, and you might have a lot of documents, and we're going to go through each list item. When we do that, we're going to find the title and description based on what's being filled here and here. Finally, we're just going to push into this list a dictionary item with a title and description. And you've seen the results. What's going to happen when you fill out this form is you're going to have this helpful JSON file where you have the name, the author, the index, whether you want to index or not. You're going to have a bunch of documents and metadata as well. That's going to be a really quick way for you to have your users, maybe not the most technical ones, provide you with a bunch of settings that you want. So I hope you guys found that helpful. This is going straight into my portfolio. This is going to be actually used once I fill in a few more of these settings, add a few more documents, blah, 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 blah. But the bare bones, every feature is in here already. I just have to fill out further. Hopefully that was helpful. If it wasn't, leave me a comment. If it was, subscribe, thumbs up, let me know. And I will see you next week with our next project.